Calling an ambulance just because of a headache and vomiting is an overreaction. If you're so worried, why don't you come home and take care of her yourself? Isn't that your responsibility? Don't expect me to handle it. I don't have time for this. I'm leaving now. You deal with it. As my daughter cried and curled up in pain, my husband walked out of the house. She had always been healthy and rarely got sick. How could it be an overreaction when she was suffering like this? It was obvious he didn't care about her at all. I was at work when it happened, but I was so scared for her that I rushed home and called an ambulance myself. If I had been there from the start, maybe she wouldn't have had to suffer so much. Holding her hand, I cried in frustration and blamed myself for not being there sooner. 5 days later, my husband finally called me. I quietly told him, I'm at our daughter's funeral. My name is Lisa, and I'm 45 years old. I work part-time while taking care of our home and raising my daughter. I met my husband Mark through a matchmaking service. Before I got married, I had a full-time job in a female-dominated field, so it was hard to meet someone at work. I had always dreamed of getting married and didn't want to wait too long, so I decided to try matchmaking. That's how I met Mark. He was very precise and careful about everything, while I was more easygoing. At first, I thought we were too different to get along. But as we spent more time together, we started to respect each other's differences. We fell deeply in love, and I couldn't believe we had met through a matchmaking service. I felt so lucky when we got married. Mark only wore his wedding ring on our wedding day because he was allergic to metal. We enjoyed our time as newlyweds, and 2 years after our wedding, we had a baby. She was born healthy, and we were overjoyed. You did amazing, sweetheart. We have a beautiful baby girl. Thank you, love. She's perfect. Let's give her all the love we can. Mark adored our daughter, Emily, maybe even more than I did. He was so obsessed with her that he used her birth weight for his passwords and even put it on his car's license plate. Seeing him love her so much made me feel warm inside, and I believed our family would always be happy together. A mother's journey. Around the time Emily started high school, Mark suddenly began working late all the time. I'm in charge of a new project. I'll be home late today, so don't wait for me. I might even have to stay at the office overnight. I understand. That sounds tough. I really appreciate how hard you're working, but don't push yourself too much. It's okay to come home early sometimes. Love you. I was proud of him for doing well at work. But he was so overworked that even on his days off, he locked himself in his study. I knew he needed rest, but he barely spent any time with us. The house started to feel cold and distant. Emily had always been a daddy's girl. Since she was little, she adored her father. But lately, things had changed. Dad's been locked in his study a lot. I know he's busy, but I miss spending time with him like we used to, she told me sadly. I could see how much it was bothering her, so I tried to fix it. Hey, Mark, how about we go out for dinner this weekend? It's been a while since we did something as a family. I wasn't expecting his reaction. Are you serious? You know how exhausted I am. Is this some kind of joke? Why can't you just let me rest on my day off? He snapped at me. I was shocked. You don't have to get so angry. Staying in your room all the time isn't good for you. Going out could help you relax after all your hard work, I said, trying to calm him down. Leave me alone. You and Emily can do whatever you want. He refused, and that was the end of it. After that, he started making sarcastic comments whenever he was frustrated. Must be nice to have so much free time, he would say, almost mocking me. I spent more time with Emily, but she was deeply hurt by her father's coldness. She started locking herself in her room. Our family was falling apart, and I kept hoping that things would get better once his work project was over. A month later, one day, Mark suddenly announced, I'm going on a training trip for 5 days, starting tomorrow. It caught me off guard. Something didn't feel right. That's so last minute. And it's been a month since you started this project. Do you still need training? I asked. There's nothing strange about it. Stay out of my business, he said coldly. His attitude frustrated me. I didn't know when he would ever make time for his family again. The next morning, he was still home when I left for work. Emily had the day off from school, so I hoped they would spend a little time together before he left. Maybe they could finally talk. The emergency? As soon as I got to work, I got a text from Emily. Mom, my head hurts so bad. It feels like it's going to split open. I feel sick. I can't take it anymore. Panic rushed through me. She had been fine when I left, but now she sounded like she was in terrible pain. I immediately called her, but she didn't pick up. I dialed Mark's number next, hoping he was still home. Are you still at home? Emily is really sick. Please call an ambulance right away. I was terrified. My grandmother had died from a brain hemorrhage, and Emily's symptoms sounded too similar. His response was unbelievable. It's just a headache and some nausea. You're overreacting. If you're so worried, why don't you come home and deal with it? I'm about to leave, so what's your problem now? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. What the hell, Mark? Our daughter is in pain, and you're just going to leave? Is your job really more important than her? I yelled. You're making a big deal out of nothing. It's raining today. Maybe she's just feeling down. If you come back, the problem will be solved. I can't be late for work. Time management is important, he said coldly. He didn't care. The man who used to love Emily more than anything had completely changed. I hung up the phone and rushed home, hoping that Mark had already left. When I arrived, I found Emily unconscious in the living room. Panicked, I immediately called an ambulance. They arrived quickly and took her to the hospital. I tried calling Mark over and over, but he didn't answer. He must have been busy, or maybe he just didn't care. If I had been there for her earlier, she wouldn't have suffered so much. The thought broke me. As I held her hand, I cried, feeling helpless and full of regret. 5 days later, Mark finally called me in the evening. His first words? You don't have to make dinner for me tonight. For a moment, I was too stunned to speak. He had been gone for 5 days. He hadn't checked on Emily once. He had no idea what had happened. I took a deep breath and told him the truth. I'm in the middle of our daughter's funeral. I can't make dinner anyway. Your trip is over, right? Can you come now? Any father would rush to his child's funeral, right? But Mark didn't even hesitate. Oh, I see. Well, I won't be able to make it. You can handle it yourself. That was it. No sadness. No guilt. Something inside me snapped. The confrontation. Mark finally came home late that night. I had been waiting. The moment he stepped inside, I let out all the anger I had been holding in. Why didn't you call an ambulance right away? Do you have any idea how much she suffered? He didn't even flinch. Instead, he scoffed. Seriously, I've been gone for days, and this is how you welcome me? Even if I had called an ambulance, it wouldn't have changed anything. What's done is done. Here, I bought you some sweets. Maybe that'll cheer you up. I stood there in shock. He had no remorse at all. I didn't even have the energy to argue anymore. Sensing my silence, he smirked. By the way, hand over all the insurance money. I paid for everything when it came to Emily. You only work part-time, so you don't have any right to it. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How can you talk about money right after losing our daughter? It's not just about work. Why don't you think about your family for once? His face remained cold. It was your responsibility to take care of her health. If anyone's to blame, it's you. Don't try to pin this on me. I clenched my fists. I knew arguing with him wouldn't get me anywhere. So I pulled out my proof. You hurt her. You put her under so much stress that it destroyed her health. Don't tell me you know nothing about this. I held up Emily's phone. It was a picture of Mark, walking arm in arm with a young woman, looking like a couple on the very day he had left for his so-called work trip. Emily had found out about his affair. She had confronted him. She had even recorded their conversation. And he had threatened her. If you tell your mother, I'll make sure you regret it, he had warned her. She had told me everything from her hospital bed. The shock, the stress, it had been too much for her to bear. I started feeling sick just thinking about it. My head ached. My stomach churned. He used to love me. He used to care for me. But I can't take this anymore, she had whispered to me. Mom, please, will you leave him? I wouldn't ignore my daughter's final wish. I met Mark's cold gaze and said firmly, I want a divorce. He didn't look surprised. This isn't enough to prove I was having an affair. I smiled bitterly. Then how about these? I tossed a stack of printed messages onto the table, his texts with his mistress. Conclusive evidence. You're kidding, right? You broke into my computer? I never gave you my password. Mark's face turned pale as he realized what I had done. I figured it out on my own. You've used my birth date for your car's license plate and your PIN. I guess you might have done the same for your password, and I was right. When I checked his emails and messages, I found all the proof I needed. He had lied to Emily and me, saying he was busy with work. But in reality, he had been living with his mistress. The training trip he told me about, it was actually a vacation with her, using his paid leave. This is an invasion of privacy. You had no right to look at my computer, he shouted, trying to defend himself. But I didn't back down. And you had no right to lie to your family. Oh, and by the way, I also found records of you stealing money from your company to pay for your girlfriend. You're not getting out of this. Just admit it. His confidence shattered. He dropped to his knees, panicked, knowing he had been completely exposed, leaving him behind. I told him I was leaving and going back to my parents' house. A few days later, I filed for divorce and got full custody of Emily. While Mark was away, I moved Emily to my parents' home and gathered more evidence of his affair. By the time he returned, we were already gone. And as for Emily's funeral, that was a lie. I wanted to see what he would choose, his daughter or his affair. He didn't even hesitate. He thought that if Emily was gone, he could keep his affair a secret and use the insurance money to pay back the company. That's when I realized what a terrible person he truly was. The thought still makes me shudder. I reported his embezzlement to HR, and he was fired. They demanded that he return all the money he had stolen. He complained that it was too much to pay back, but that wasn't my problem. And as if karma wasn't done with him yet, I found his mistress's contact information saved on his computer. I called her and told her everything. Mark had been so careful about keeping records, but in the end, his attention to detail was his downfall. His mistress dumped him. Even his parents, ashamed of his actions, cut ties with him. Now he lives alone, struggling to pay child support, alimony, and the money he owes his company. A fresh start. One day, Mark came crawling back, full of regret. I'm so sorry, I was weak and I made terrible mistakes. Please, can we start over? But it was far too late. I refused to forgive him. As for Emily, the little girl who once adored her father, she had completely changed. I never want to see him again, she said firmly. With the support of my parents and a close friend who had been through something similar, Emily slowly started to heal. One night, I asked her, "Are you happy now that we're divorced?" She didn't even hesitate. Of course, he's just a stranger to me now. What really matters is that I have you, Mom. You always cared about me. Thank you for being here. I love you. Tears filled my eyes as I hugged her tightly. Thank you for being my daughter. I love you so much. At that moment, we both knew we had each other, and that was enough. We were finally stepping toward a brighter future together.